Hi there, welcome to the Hydro GeoAnalyst video training series. My name is Brandon McNeil and I'm the software trainer here at Waterloo Hydrogeologic. In this video I'll introduce you to the Material Specifications Editor and the List Editor modules available in HGA. The List Editor module provides the ability to create and customize lists for any database field, allowing for efficient and effective data entry. Building list requirements into your database structure is also a great way to add an additional layer of data validation into your project. It won't be possible to enter accidental typo values if the acceptable values are already prescribed as part of the database structure itself. For example, if I look at the drilling protocol field under the well construction table, I can see that there are three potential values for the drilling method: air percussion, hollow stem auger, and rotary air. But I can also type in values as well, hand drilled. Now, to commit this change, I would have to, of course, save the record here. So this is an example of what we would call an optional list. Lists can also be required, though. An example of a required list would be for the chemical name value under the monitoring event table, or the parameter result table. As you can see here, the chemical name list is quite long and includes several hundred different chemicals. However, if I wanted to enter a custom value, for example, if I wanted to change BTEX to, let's say, bromate, well, if I accidentally type in a typo, for example, if I went bormate, you can see that it automatically selects boron for me. And it's not really possible for me to enter in any other values except for the ones that are listed here. So that's an example of what we would call a required list. If you access the List Editor module, which you can do by clicking on this button in the toolbar here, then you'll first notice that the entire database structure is listed on the left-hand side with all of the available data tables and fields and categories. As you scroll through and select individual fields, you can see that the list style for them is listed here up at the top of the List Editor window. For example, the color for the lithology table, the list style is optional. You can select from these particular colors, but you can also type in other colors if these ones don't apply. If you do find a field where the list style is either optional or required, then you can use the toolbar buttons at the top of the List Editor module to add in new colors. Optionally, you can add a description, and sometimes you'll be able to apply an image as well. Just by double-clicking here, that opens up a file explorer where you can browse and select an image for that new pattern, or for that new color. It's also possible to delete entries from the lists, and of course you can also import or export lists. The import list can be imported from a .csv file, and they can be exported to an Excel files. You'll notice here that it isn't actually possible to change the list style here in the List Editor. That means that you can't actually take a field without a list and change it into a required list field. You also can't change optional lists to required lists here. These changes have to be made in the Template Manager. Therefore, the best place to start when creating lists in your database is going to be through the Template Manager, which we actually covered in the previous video. Let's open up the Template Manager quickly here, just to review the process of creating lists. In the last video, we created a new table for streamflow gauges, and one of the fields that we included was the gauge type. Let's add a list of potential gauge types to this field. So the first things first, we would open up the Template Manager module, and now we select the field that we're interested in working with, and we'll change the list style to optional. Optional or required works. The next thing that we would have to do is select from the list type. There's two options here, generic and soil. The soil list type is specifically for the soil, the Material Specifications Editor. So for the vast majority of list options that you're going to work with, the generic list style is going to be required. Once you've selected the list type, you can click this button right here. And this essentially opens a new little window which works just the same as the List Editor. You can see that they have the exact same toolbar buttons and basically provides you with the same abilities as the List Editor module itself. So let's add in a couple of different gauge types here. We can do weirs, we'll do flumes, and we can also just do a stick-up gauge or a staff gauge. Again, we can provide a description or an image if we wanted to, but once we're happy, we can just click the X button here to close this, and we'll save the list. And this, this particular database field will now have a list associated with it. Also, once the list style has been set as optional, it's not actually required to build the list directly in here. Once the list style has been selected, we can close the template manager and we can actually continue our work on the lists directly in the main list editor module here. So again, if we access the list editor, select our gauge type, we can see that now the list style is optional, and if we want, we can add in new values. And to apply the change, we would just click the Save button in the toolbar. So that's basically a quick introduction to the list editor module. Another module is available specifically for soil type lists, and that's the Material Specifications editor, which we can access by clicking this button right here in the toolbar. The Material Specifications editor is very similar to the list editor, except that the soil type lists will also have an image associated with them, as shown here in the image column. These images are actually used in pretty much all of the visualization modules in HGA to display soil types. For example, if I open up a well profile template, we can see here that in the well construction column we have several different soil types displayed. And actually, if we look at this one, it's a little bit easier. We can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different soil types for this particular well. And those soil types here, if we look at the first one as coarse gravel, we can see that the image is actually being taken here from the Material Specifications editor. So within the Material Specifications editor module, there's two main areas. The area on the left displays the entries associated with the currently selected material specification system. You can change the system that's used in the project simply by selecting from the available specification systems here in this list. Once you make the change, you should see the list down below updated automatically. In order to actually apply this particular specification and set it as the standard for this project, we would simply click on this green check mark button here to set this specification as the project material specification. As soon as that's done, as if we return to the well profile editor and refresh things, we can see that the soil type images have changed. Of course, in the new one that we've selected, we have a completely different nomenclature for our soil types, and therefore the images actually haven't been updated here. A better selection might be USDA. If we select that and then apply it, come back to our well profile and refresh, we can see that at least there's an image associated with silt. Let's set it back to our original DIN 4023. Now, Hydro GeoAnalyst does come pre-installed with several international standard soil systems, but it is possible to create your own, and that's where the right-hand side of the Material Specifications module comes in handy. To create your own project-specific soil classification systems, you would simply click this button here on the right-hand side to create a new specification. You then provide a name for it. We'll call it Project Custom Soil System. And then we can use the toolbar buttons to add in individual entries. We could also delete individual entries. We can also, of course, import or export the entries to or from Excel spreadsheets. Now, let's add in a couple here. We'll just do simple ones: clay, sand, and maybe gravel. And then actually, since some of these already exist here over in the existing ones, we can actually use these as the existing soil specification systems as the building blocks for a new project-specific one. So for example, if I wanted to take gravel from the DIN 4023, I would simply select it and then use the arrow button here to load it into my new project-specific soil classification system. I can also basically copy over every single entry from an entire specification system using this double arrow button here. That simply copies over everything from the selected specification system. For any manually entered soil types, we can simply double-click here in the image field and that opens up a file explorer, and we can then go and select the image that we would like to use for that particular soil type. Once we've entered all of the values for our new project-specific soil system, we would simply click the Save button here, and as soon as you click the Save button, then our project custom soil system now appears in the list of available systems within the project. So we can select that here from this menu, and then click this button here to set it as the project-specific material or soil classification system. There is one other way to change the project soil classification system, and that's through the main menu. You can select Project Properties. That opens up the Project Properties window, and you can actually change the material specification system here as well. So that's it for the list editor and the material specifications editor video. In the next video, I'll introduce the data transfer module, which is how you would import data into your HGA projects. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more HGA training videos.